Pebeshe, Malkatna Hesheve, Nantista, Hamatakiapi, Richakpi Litawi, Imachiapi, Kishto. My English name is Cinnamon Kills First. I graduated from Dartmouth in 2009, again with my master's degree in 2013. Part of how I define resiliency is taking care of my mind and always being curious and wanting to learn more. I try to read a book at least a month, audiobooks and books, and constantly learn from my friends and relatives, mentors, and the earth around me.
Ayukui, Neck now Dr. Blythe George, McKinleyville, Ock. I'm joining you today from the campus of Dartmouth College, my alma mater, and it's truly a full circle opportunity to reflect in this way on this campus. I think that resilience often lives in our mind before it lives anywhere else, and for me this is where I first dreamed certain dreams, and to be able to stand here today living one of those dreams as Professor Blythe George is something fills me with great gratitude. We spend a lot of time chasing accomplishments, and far too often do we take us time to recognize how far we've come, and so to be here on this campus basking in that glory, quite honestly, for me is that resilience, because I once dreamed this day and today it's here. Now we're standing in front of Baker Library, and I think we can both say when it comes to feeding our minds, as you were describing, this is where we fed our minds. If we weren't at the NAD house, this is where I was. I worked in the cafe, the stacks, being able to go somewhere with so many books, you had to learn a new system. It was a privilege, because I'm at a school now that only has one library, and I can say I was at a place with 7. What does this building bring to mind for you?
I'm reminded of how I came from the reservation, and when I left my underfunded rural Montana public school, I wasn't given the proper tools to navigate a library system. So my heart goes out to the upperclassmen who I remember took me by the hand from the NAD house, drug me to the library, and taught me in that big sister way how to use the library as a tool, which was vital for my existence and success here as a scholar.
I Am Where I Come From was written at a point very special to me. I was actually in my first year of grad school, and I bring that up because I've had teachings actually since that time, and there was a concept that I spoke on about success in both worlds, and I think that is very powerful, because there was a time where we had to conceive of it in that way. But my tribal judge, Judge Abby Abinanti, shared with me that she had to live in both worlds, but what she dreamed for me was that I would be a Yurok woman in whatever room I found myself in. I went to great lengths to gain credentials so that when I spoke, people would listen about my part of the world, and they would intervene in the ways that were most helpful, but also honored their trust responsibility to us as sovereign nations. I am a Yurok woman, I am where I come from, and it's a privilege to stand here today in front of Sherman House and say that.
Part of my resilience is knowing who I am and where I come from. So in my introduction earlier, I spoke both Cheyenne and Lakota, and I introduced myself saying that in Cheyenne, I am known as Little Woman, and in Lakota, I am known as Red Star Woman. Knowing my connection to my family, to my people, to my tribe, spiritually to my ancestors as represented here, generations beyond me, before me and after me, knowing that I'm part of the continuum, hearing birds calling, knowing it's all connected is part of what provides for me the resilience I need to be the strong master artist that I've become.
When I think of being at Dartmouth, I can definitively say it's the first place I ever loved like a home, like the home I was from. And I think that it was actually the land that first acknowledged that I could be here. And I think that even though I'm far from home in a place like this, being able to know that it had held up the students who came before me, just like it would hold me up, I think there's a recognition coming from an Indigenous viewpoint that we hold space for that. But you don't realize it'll come from many different lands, and not just the land that you are lucky enough to come from. Another home for many of us.
Another thing that brings to mind is how we as Indigenous people can utilize not only the land as an external resource, but also our ancestors. So that brings to mind for me a Cheyenne hero of mine who is Buffalo Calf Road Woman, who we know is the hero of the battle where the girl saved her brother. So in that story, she acted out of love, and she actually inspired the other warriors to go and defeat General Crook in that battle. And so when I tap into that ancestry and know that we descend from those type of warriors who are willing to give their everything to defend their loved ones, their land, that's the strength I pull on when I think of resiliency in any setting, whether it's personal, professional, social, collective, or individual, or internal. I draw from that ancestral spiritual strength for my own personal resilience.
We're standing in the Nad House today, which is the first place many of us ever get to go on campus. And I remember being a scared junior, almost senior in college. I was here on a summer visit, and they took us to see all the people, see the real life college students. And they opened the door, and there's Cinnamon. And honestly, you scared me a little. You were so fiercely Cheyenne. It was palpable from the Northern Star on the wall, and just you taught me to put respect on the name of those who came from a reservation. And it wasn't just from that day, but it was from those many teachings that came from that. And for me, as someone who's white passing, it's often hard to feel that strength, or it was at a certain point. But once I got to know Nads and live in this space and learn how, I might be Yurok and the way we do it is the way we do it, I am Indigenous nonetheless.
In my professional career, I have been able to write on behalf of the Indian Health Service regionally and educate regionally. So in those instances, I had NADs from different regions of the world that I was able to call upon to, get the symbology or the colors right for them. And so I've been so thankful that you and so many others have been a part of my community, both here and beyond.
That even though as Indigenous people, boarding schools and the history that each of us share as tribal people, we have these opportunities to come together and to share space and share how our families do it, how our traditions do it, and in that way make a really beautiful community that actually makes me think of here. We have all the languages that have been spoken by different Dartmouth alums, and it's on the wall. It's in a space where we all live, and for me, this was where my heart lived for the time at Dartmouth.
Absolutely, and one of my messages from the start is that it doesn't matter what you look like, and when we think of ourselves in a spiritual sense, we're really a spirit in a body. So this is the flesh we're given to live this life here, and we need to acknowledge each other as relatives, no matter what body we're living in, because we're all connected that way.
When I think back at what I wrote in I Am Where I Come From, there's one thing that I really want to correct, and I think it actually shows a lot of healing that I've done. I wrote at one point that I could never forgive my father for his methamphetamine use, and I'm happy to say that's actually far from true. He has been in recovery now, 5 going on 6 years. It is the greatest gift he could ever give me, and I realize I've learned so much about substance use disorder and how we as Indigenous people have a legacy now of generationally coping through substances. And the more we learn, we get a chance to break those cycles and choose differently, because we come from strong people. We don't just inherit the bad that comes over time and from generations of marginalization. We inherit the resilience first and foremost. I'm here because the prayers of men like Wichipek Frank protect me to this day, 7 generations back. That blood is in my veins, and to sit here and to think back, it fills me with gratitude. And I can't help but say waklau to those who've come before so that I can stand here now.
Part of the growth I've achieved since the publication of I Am Where I Come From is really expanding my acceptance towards indigeneity, the full spectrum, knowing that it's not a binary, it's not a spectrum, it's in fact a circle, and that there's a place for each and every one of us. I seen in my writing, when I look back at it, a critical view I held towards my peers. And those are the traumas we've inherited from the generations above us, but we are the new tradition, and I've achieved healing to where I support and empower all Native people, because that's the legacy I want to leave for the generations who come behind. I'm able to return to Akampand today to acknowledge the spirits of the Abenaki people and Sansom Akam, who paved the way for us, many of the leaders who came before us. Today, even, my mother, she asked me to come acknowledge the water spirits here at Akampand, and I do that on her behalf and on behalf of those who have come before us and those who will come after us. Tinkashila wankantanka mini oyate pilamayaye wopila nitakiyasi.